Shalom, shalom, and good morning and good afternoon to all our participants from across the country. We are delighted to welcome you to another program in conversation with Ambassador Ido Aharoni, this time on the topic of nation-state cybersecurity. In today's program, Ambassador Aharoni will converse with our guest, Brigadier General Reservist Ran Shahor, co-founder and CEO of HolistiCyber. Ran founded the leading-edge cybersecurity program of the Israeli Defense Forces intelligence branch while he was in service, which he later commended. Back in the 90s, when cyber defense was the talk of science fiction, Ran created the first special forces unit within the IDF specific to cyber. As a brigadier general with a focus on combat, it was clear to him that this vector was the new warfare, and creating this program was imperative to national security. After 27 years of service, Ran had multiple leadership roles in the private sector. Prior to co-founding HolistiCyber, he was the founder and the co-CEO of Focal Energy, clean energy power plant. Previously to Focal Energy, he was the managing partner of Star Ventures, a $1 billion global venture capital group. Our host today and interviewer is Ambassador Ido Aharoni, who serves as Global Distinguished Professor for International Relations at NYU's Faculty of Arts and Science. Ido is a 25-year veteran of Israel's Foreign Service, founder of the Brand Israel program, and has been Israel's longest-serving Consul General in New York and this tri-state area, which is Israel's largest diplomatic mission worldwide. So to our audience, you may type your questions in the Q&A box, and Ido will try to cover them as time allows. Ido, please take it away.
Thank you so much, Dina, and thank you, Ayala, and the rest of the wonderful team and the staff of Canadian Friends of the Hebrew U. It's such an honor and a pleasure to be hosting a conversation with my dear friend, Brigadier General Ran Shahor. Just to add to your wonderful introduction, Ran Shahor was born and raised in a kibbutz, actually in a rather famous kibbutz in Israel. One of the reasons this kibbutz was famous is because, first of all, it was very large in comparison to other kibbutzim, but also had a basketball team in the first division. And our guest was the first playmaker of that basketball team. And in fact, he even had the opportunity to groom someone who became very famous, and that's of course David Blatt, who is the most decorated sportsman our country ever produced, with many championships and of course NBA coaching position. He later on went to the Army, where he served in a very special unit. The unit is so special, you have to understand that in Hebrew, you don't even have to say the name of the unit. All you have to say is the unit, and everybody knows which unit you're talking about. That's how special that unit is. It doesn't even have a name, just the unit. And of course, you won't be able to tell us anything about those years, but in 1991, he left that position and joined the Israel Intelligence Corps. And in that capacity, he was really in a unique position to build Israel's cybersecurity prowess, cybersecurity foundation, which really served as the springboard for what he's doing today as the chairman of HolistiCyber, which is at the cutting edge of consultancy on the issue of how we protect ourselves and our systems and our loved ones and our families against those threats. So today, we're going to divide our conversation into two blocks. The first is going to be more personal, about his life. The second about the world of cyber threats and cyberspace. And with that, I'd like to welcome our dear guest, my dear friend, Ran Shahor.
Thank you, Ido, and thank you for having us. It is a pleasure and an honor for me to take part in this event.
So the first question is for the benefit of our listeners, and the many, many hundreds, if not thousands of people that will be watching this on video. Tell us a little bit about life in the kibbutz. You were born in 1957. The state of Israel then was very young, very poor, had no economy other than a little bit of agriculture, had no export. Tell us about life in the kibbutz.
So I remember a very happy life in the kibbutz. You know, I always say that my experience as a kid in a kibbutz, it's like a fairy tale story for me. From the age of 3, when I can remember, till the age of 18, when I joined the military, I really, really loved it. A wonderful family, father and mother. My father was a world-class musician. He was a mandolin player. He also was an artist and many other things. And my mother is a Holocaust survivor. She is now 90 years old, the most generous, kind, and wise person I know, really. With all the horrors and her background, she remains optimistic and wise and warm. So I remember those days as wonderful days in the kibbutz. I never felt like we are poor. I never felt we have no resources. I felt wonderful in the kibbutz.
Was the Holocaust and the remembrance of the Holocaust, was it present in the everyday life of your family?
No, not when I was a kid. You know, in Israel, till the trial of Eichmann, nobody talked about the Holocaust. And my mother kept it for herself and never talked about it. Actually, it became more, I still remember as a kid, my mother lost her entire family in the Holocaust. And she and her sister survived. But when the war ended, her sister was about 10 years older than her, sent her to Israel, and they never heard anything from her. So as a kid, I still remember myself listening to the radio. They have two programs in a day. My job as a kid was to go to the only radio we have in the kibbutz and to listen if somebody is talking about Mania Herzberg or Mania Gersberg, her sister. So as a kid, there was something about the Holocaust. I was, I was going every day, 6:30 in the afternoon, to listen if anybody is asking or talking about Mania Herzberg. This is her sister. By the way, when I was a colonel, we have actually found her sister after 54 years that both her and her sister believed each other is dead. And we found her in Uzbekistan and we brought her to Israel. So it was another story. We don't talk about it. But so Holocaust was there, but not really.
So, I mean, this is a fascinating story. So they reunited after 57 years. Her sister was in Uzbekistan. Obviously, she lived under the Soviet regime. And so
Exactly.
did she come to Israel in the wave of the 1990s with all the after the collapse?
Yeah. So I was able to allocate. Actually, I was looking for a grave. My story was that she's dead. And I asked somebody in one of the Israeli organizations to allocate her grave, and he found her alive. So we went there, my mother, my sister, and myself, for 2 weeks visits there to see the grave of the parents and everything. And we came back to Israel. And after 2 months, we were able to bring her to Israel, and she lived with us for almost 3 years, and she died. It was wonderful.
This is an incredible story, and I hope that this was somehow recorded and the testimonies were recorded for the sake of future generations.
It is.
So you spent your early years in the kibbutz. Obviously, you were exposed to, the healthy life in the kibbutz. There's always a question that people ask about life in the kibbutz, about communal sleeping.
Yeah.
when the babies. Now, I've read many accounts of people who were raised in a kibbutz that are contradictory, right? There's a group of people that say it was a nightmare, and other people say it was lovely. We don't see anything wrong with it. Where do you stand on the issue of communal sleeping?
Right in between. So, because I know that for me it was lovely. I remember it as a wonderful thing. Nobody is, you are with group of kids alone. Nobody knows what you do, what is going on there. And so I felt great. I have the freedom to do whatever I wanted. And but for kids that were more sensitive, it was a nightmare. So, and was it one more thing that for me, at that time, if you were in this kindergarten of kids, like where you have to, and you felt bad, and you wanted to go to your parents' home in the middle of the night, and you went there. At that time, it was very strict. They would put you back in immediately in the kinder house, because these were the rules. Now my mother, she never listened to these rules, and she always told me, whenever you feel bad, you can come home. I still remember my first memory as a kid is me riding on her back. I had a earache, and she's taking me home. Now, because I had this option, I never felt the need. I never felt the need to go to my parents' house. So I felt very good. And I know some others were suffering very, very badly. So I'm in the middle. I felt good, but I never allow my kids to be in such a situation. So I'm not in the kibbutz. I left the kibbutz many, many years ago. But even if I was in the kibbutz, I would have never allowed my kids to have the same experience.
And it is definitely, from a scientific point of view, a rather controversial, if not debatable, practice. So at the age of 18, you're going to the army and you're joining a very special and very secretive unit. Don't tell us anything about what you did in the unit, but just tell us how someone ends up in that kind of unit. If it's such a secret, you're not even supposed to know it exists.
Okay, so first of all, you're talking about the basketball career. I was also playing saxophone, and all of those things, the peak of my career was when I was 17 and a half. Then I joined the military and the basketball and the saxophone. And then I never had the thought that I would spend so much time in the military. I was a left-wing peace supporter guy, and I thought I will exhaust my 3 years and go back to the kibbutz. So what came out that, and it surprised me, that I find out that some of my qualities are very, very good for this special unit. Some of it is related to navigation, but the main thing that I found out about myself is that the more the situation is complicated and dangerous, I feel more calm and comfortable. So I feel like as I have like my brain's becoming clear and I know what to do. And so this unit, it surprised me completely. But for this unit is a wonderful quality, and they put a lot of pressure on me, so I stayed there for a year. And I never signed for more than the next job, because I always thought after the next job I'm going to leave back to the private sector. But it came out that I stayed there for 26 years. Now I was accepted by by chance. You know, I had no idea. I didn't know about this unit. They have asked me to come to some tests. So I was in good shape because of the basketball. And I ran those tests and I passed. And that's it. I mean, I had no idea, something that I was not dreaming about. It was very secretive. It is very secretive. But I'm glad I was there. It was like today, it's like second home for me. I spent many years there, and even later I became much more senior. I still was commanding the same group of units. This unit is one of them, and for years after, I was the head of the veteran Aharoni of this unit for many years. So, and you know, this is a very special unit. If you look at the last 4 prime ministers in Israel, 3 of them served in this unit: Bibi Netanyahu, Ehud Barak, and Bennett. So this unit is very unique, small, but have a lot of influence on Israeli society.
Did Bennett go through the whole process from the beginning, or he joined the unit later?
Bennett was from the beginning, but he was there only for like 2.5 years, and then he left and moved to the other part of the military.
Got it.
I stayed there till I became the head of this unit, and then the head of the special forces, and then the military secretary, the prime minister of defense, and many other things.
So so talking about politicians, you also had a chapter in your career where you were the press secretary to Israel's Minister of Defense. And that gave you also the opportunity to look at the political decision-making end of things. So tell us a little bit about your memories from that period working alongside Israel's top decision makers.
Yeah, it's a good question. So it came to me as a surprise. They asked me to be actually, I started with Shimon Peres when he was the prime minister for like 2 or 3 months, 4 months. And then he lost the election, as usual, for him, unfortunately. And there was a split because he was the prime minister and the minister of defense. When Bibi Netanyahu came, there was a split, and I became the military secretary of the Minister of Defense, and another guy became the military secretary of the Prime Minister. It was fascinating. I didn't like it because this is not something you do. You serve somebody else, but it was certainly fascinating. And you know, a few years later, Ehud Barak called me and wanted me to be his right hand when he was Prime Minister. He said, "You have unlimited influence and power." And I told him I was lucky enough to be in this area for a year or 1.5 years. So I know exactly where I'm not going to serve. I'm not going to be in politics. And I said, no, we remain very good friends, but I decided not to go there. And the reason I decided to go because I was there, and I know that if you became part of the politics, it is making you, by definition, a less good person. And I decided that I don't want to have part of it.
If I may say, very smart decision. Now, we're back in the early 1990s. You're getting out of your job as a commander of this field unit, and now you're in the headquarters, and you're looking at the next battlefield, the next front. And what are you seeing? The internet is at its infancy. The information revolution is beginning to grow. Cellular telephones are not commonplace like they are today. What were the thoughts that you had during those days when you looked at the intangible threat that Israel was facing?
So at the second half of 1995, I became the head of a very large organization within the intelligence corps by the name of SOD, Special Operation Department, which was a combination of a few combat commander units, intelligence units, and the largest, the most sophisticated technological units in the military. So I was the head of it. It is a very powerful organization, very successful. And when I joined, I was worried because I was trying to think what will happen next. You know, when you are very successful, you need to make sure you're not going to go in the wrong direction. So I gathered the leadership of this organization for 2 weeks in a place not far from Jerusalem for brainstorming. And one of the results of this brainstorming said that in the future, nation state would use the internet for many, many missions. So instead of attacking each other only by missiles and troops, they might use the internet in order to attack critical infrastructure, critical industries. Now, remember, we are talking about 95. 95, internet was only universities and only in good universities. They have room of the internet. Nobody had internet at home. And the mobile was for very rich people. But we thought in the future, this newborn internet will play a major role in life. And part of it will be to attack each other. And I thought that in order to be able to protect ourselves, we need to know how to attack. And I actually started the first attack program, a cyber attack program in Israel. It was by far the first cyber attack, government attack program all over the world. Now, at that time, there was a furious opposition to this program. People thought the young general lost his mind, investing in science fiction, defocusing his important other role. But luckily, we were stubborn enough. And one of the reasons Israel is the leading force in the cyberspace is because we started very, very early. This is one reason. I'll talk later, maybe if you ask me about another reason, which is not less important.
So other than the opposition within the army, obviously big organizations always resist change. What was the other type of opposition you had to face?
So, you know, in Israel, there is, like in every country, we have the Mossad and Shabak, it's the Israeli CIA, NSA, FBI. So all of them wanted to be part of this. After it showed initial success, everybody wanted to be part of it, and we thought it is dangerous that everybody will deal with it. So we stopped it, and there was a lot of arguments around it, but eventually it went well, and we have cooperated with all the organizations. Each one had its role in this newborn warfare. And I think this is the case right now with the speak as well.
What would you say are the main principles that guided that process and that you could apply to any nation that wants to protect itself?
The principles are that since it is the internet is extremely spread, and that time it was not extremely spread, but it will be extremely spread, and it could be reached. It is a tool for everybody to reach sources of information, talk to each other. It could be used by bad people as well. So we need to know how to be protected and how to attack back if needed.
And would you say that the same principle applies to any nation, whether it's yes. Iran, North Korea, Israel, United States?
Yes, of course, and it's only a matter of how it would be used. Today, there are 4 countries that are using it for influencing the world not in the right way. It's Russia, it's North Korea, it's China, and recently Iran. By the way, each one of them have different agenda here. Russia is to create mess in the West, disorder, mess, and for China, it's mainly for IP, for intelligence. You know, many years ago, they were taking photos in exhibitions, and today they are stealing IP, extremely sophisticated units they have, and very powerful, even stronger than the Russians. And North Korea, for them, it's a budget. More than 50% of the budget of North Korea comes from stealing money from banks, crypto, and the like. More than 50% of the budget. And for Iran is mainly for terror and money stealing. So this is the main goals for each of those four leading countries in this space.
Now, in terms of capabilities and qualities, which societies, and I don't want to use the word governments, which societies, economies belong to the upper echelon when you and I include in that academic excellence and so
on? I think the US is, apart from those four nations that I just mentioned, in the Western world, the US, the UK, and Israel are at the top. By the way, in most European countries, by law, you're not allowed to attack. It is allowed in the UK, in the US, and in Israel by law. And some countries are considering changing now the policy because they see what happened. You know, if you don't have the ability to attack, you're extremely exposed. And so I know, and we are familiar with some NATO governments because they are our clients. And I know they are thinking about it very seriously about changing it. But till today, most countries in the West are not allowed by law to attack. So they are not in the same level of sophistication, because today when attackers are so sophisticated and they are using nation state-owned tools that actually most of it was stolen from the NSA by a Russian group by the name of shadow brokers, it is now for sale in the internet for $200. So attackers are using this extremely sophisticated tool that took tens of millions of dollars to develop, and they can take a bank down. So today's attackers are using this type of weapon, and they are heavily backed, supported, and even instructed by nation states. Once again, by Russia, by China, by North Korea, and by Iran.
What's the best way for governments, let's say the Israeli government or the Canadian government or the American government, to keep on having that edge over the attackers, the enemy?
Yeah, and it's more than that. You know, before the war, Putin met Biden, and Biden told him, "How are you dare to attack us?" And Putin said, "I have no idea what you're talking about. It's not us. It's not the government. Maybe we have some gangs that are doing something, but it's not us." So actually, they were using those gangs and finance them and give them a weapon to attack the US. So they are not the ones to be blamed. So today, the understanding the attackers are so sophisticated, the only way to deal with them properly is if you can think like the attacker. And the only efficient way to think like the attacker is if you have an attacker background yourself. My grandmother used to say, "Take a thief to catch a thief." So, and here, this is the advantage of Israel and Israel companies, that they do have such people, methodology and technology that are familiar with the way attacker works, because they have attacker background themselves, so they can protect much better against this level of new attackers.
What are the best methodologies that you would recommend institutions and governments to use in not only protecting themselves, but also proactively attacking their enemies or preventing attacks?
So I will not talk about attack because this is government business and I can't expose it. And I personally decided that after leaving the service, I will do only defense. I'm at the side of the good guys. I help organizations and governments and private people to defend themselves by many ways that I will elaborate in a moment. So I can't talk about attacks because this is also secrets and I can't share with anybody. But I think it is imperative for countries and for organizations to pick their defender by making sure the defender have the right team that used to be ex-attackers, and they can think like the attacker, adapt the right methodology, meaning that, in HolistiCyber, we call it OFM, Offensive Framework Methodology, meaning we act as your defender, as your right hand, but we do it thinking like the attacker. And this allows us to prioritize, to take calculated risks, because we know the attackers so well. Some of them we know personally, some of them we know the way they work. We know what exhausts them, what frightens them, what would make him go to the other bank or to the other insurance company. So we are prioritizing. There is no way to defend everything. You see the slogan above my hand, defend what matters. So if you ask me, what is the most important things for organizations is to prioritize. Don't try to be fully protected because there is no such thing. And we are not commanded to try to be there. Be better protected than the industry. Better protected than your competition. You know the story about the bear, the famous story about the bear, that Tim and John went camping in Alaska, and the morning came and they came out of their tent, and a furious, huge bear running at them. So John said, "Can you pass me the sneakers, the running shoes?" And Tim said, "What do you need the running shoes for? The bear will outrun you anyway." So John said, "I don't have to outrun the bear. I have to outrun you." So in the cyberspace, this is exactly the same things for organizations. If somebody told them, "I will make you fully protected," don't believe him. There's no such thing. But you don't have to be fully protected. You have to be better protected than the others. Now, as an attacker, I can tell you that attacker will notice it immediately. Because let's say if the government of China want to attack you, they will do it. But this is only fraction of the attacks. I mean, it's 99.9% of the attack are statistics. They spread their software, and then they sense if you are good enough protected, they will go to others. They don't want to waste the time and energy and money to take you. So we recommend organizations to prioritize, to protect what matters, and to do it wisely, and then be better protected than others. This is the way they should react. This is to organizations. If you ask me about private people, and we are all private people, we are part of organizations, some of them are all private people. So I think the first thing to understand is that no more privacy. Whatever you wrote in your mail, in your mobile, you need to assume that somebody will see it. So we have to be careful about it. This is number one. You have to assume privacy is not there anymore. Number two, you have to be careful and aware all the time. And if there is something that you are not familiar with, with. You're not sure. You're not expecting to get this type of mail or this type of message. Don't open it. Don't press any link that is sent to you. And the best way to verify is to do it in another route. Let's say if I'm getting a mail from you, Ido, saying, oh, Ran, can you press this link? Very interesting. And I never got such a mail from you before. It's not that we are doing it every day. So I don't send you a mail back asking, is that you? Because if I do that, the attacker will say, yes, it's Ido. I'll take the phone because I got the message from you via mail and ask you, Ido, have you sent me this message? Is it you or somebody else? So you have to do it via a different route and verify. So if you are careful, not in panic, but careful, and if something is strange, you are not pressing it unless you verify it, you are very good protected.
What can you tell us about
private people?
What can you tell us? We're all using social media here. What can you tell us about the level of protection that we're getting from the platform we're using, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, LinkedIn, and what have you?
Don't trust it. I mean, they are doing their best and they are pretty good protected. But as I said, there is no such thing as fully protected, and sophisticated attackers find a way to manipulate it and to get to you. But there is no substitute for sense for common sense and carefulness. So don't be in panic. I mean, there are a lot of measures of protection in all of those platforms, but don't trust them fully. Never. We do know that because when we are training large organizations, part of the training is attacking them, as a drill. And this is the way we do. We attack them through LinkedIn and Facebook, and very successfully, I must admit. So we know it is protected, but we know it is not fully protected and it can be manipulated.
So this methodology that you just described is called friendly hacking, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is an attack that the organization is inviting to test itself. And your experience has been that this has been very, very successful, right? The question is, why not every organization is doing that? What is it that many organizations are missing?
By the way, today there is a lot of regulation. And most organizations, financial organizations, utilities, by their own regulation, they have to do it. It's a must for them. But there is a difference between, they can do it just as a check in the box and take the cheapest group to do it for them, and it's not efficient. And some of them are taking it very seriously and doing it in the right way. Most of them, I would say, most of the financial organizations or the large ones are taking it more seriously, and they are pretty good protected. Now, but this is finance and utility, which are, for the last many years, are pretty heavily regulated. By the way, we call it red team simulation. This is only a small part of getting yourself ready. There are many, many other things you have to do. But if you take it seriously and you pick the right people to help you, you can be very, very well protected. And so it is doable. It's just a matter of focus and determination and picking the right advisor, or the right people to help you.
Now, we have lots of questions here for you. But first, before I ask the first question, small world, there's a woman on this call who served under you as a soldier 30 years ago, and her name is Ronit Goodman, and she's sending you a salute. But thank you, Ronit, and
Thank
I'll
you.
make sure that you will connect via Dina after the call. So the
Please
first
do.
question is: your IDF cyber background helping you to protect your clients today? And I would add to that, in what way?
So I just talked about it. It is very, very helpful in the sense that, for many years I was an attacker. Me and the people that are working with me. And by the way, I must add here that this is the uniqueness of Israel here. In the Western world, even in the US and the UK, it is extremely hard and very expensive to get a person with attacker background. Because the NSA, the CIA, the MI5, the MI6 are very efficient. They hire the people at the age of 24, and most of them would go all the way to retirement. And the ones that leave, the 12%, 10% that leave, are very, very expensive. The only exception to that in the Western world is Israel. Not because in Israel people are more clever, but because of the system. In Israel, 130,000 boys and girls are joining the military every year, out of which the military have the privilege to pick the brightest 1,000, walk them through extremely intensive cybersecurity courses, equivalent to 6-7 years in the university. But more importantly, those geniuses, right after those courses, for a period of 10 years, are taking part in mission-critical, state-of-the-art, most sophisticated attack missions in the world. But by the age of 30, 96% of them would leave to the private market. Why? Because the Israeli 800 Mossad, they don't need so many people. They have a fresh flow of 1,000 people every year. The first 3 years, they don't have to pay them because service is mandatory. And they need only 3 or 4% to become colonel and generals. So actually, the system allows a constant annual flow of 1,000 world-class cyber experts that are much better educated, more sophisticated, more creative than the worst hackers of the world. Yet they are wonderful people. My son is one of them. You can trust them. They know how to work in groups. And this is unique to Israel. And this is why Israel, together with the fact that we started early, is the reason why Israel is the leading force in cyberspace. And this is related to my background. So this was the answer to your question.
That's very interesting, that the system, because of its structure, is producing so many high quality personnel. Another question here: in light of the crazy cyber attacks that are happening those days, if you had one advice to give a corporation and a private person, what would that advice be? Just one advice. I think you already told us about private people, that you always have to be cautious and double check the source. What about the one advice for corporations?
For corporation, defend what matters. Prioritize. Don't try to defend everything, because if you are trying to defend everything, as if you're defending nothing. Don't be afraid to take calculated risk, because not taking calculated risk would create a much larger risk over your organization.
And I think that in the past, you and I had conversations about the tendency of large corporations to buy products. And by the time they're done internalizing the products and introducing the products to their entire organization, there's a new threat because the pace is so dramatic. Can you give us some examples about how quickly the threats are changing?
So I can give you from our experience. We have large global corporates as clients, and we do a lot of work for them. And they ask us, do we need to buy some more tools? In maybe 95% of the recommendations are not new tools. They have too many tools. And they're buying everything in the market, but they are not, the architecture is not good enough. The awareness is not good enough. The discipline is not good enough. The way to configure those tools are not good enough. And this is where maybe 90% of the work is done. So tools are very important, but it's not the main thing.
Another question here is a very good one. Why has nation-state cyber attack risen in prominence and are discussed much more openly nowadays than compared to, say, 4 or 5 years ago?
It is, 4 years ago, we were, running away in the US and talking to banks about nation state grade attackers. And people said, we are a peaceful bank in Connecticut. Why on earth a nation state grade attacker would like to attack me? This question is not a question anymore today. There is a common understanding, and this is part of the NSA report and the CIA and DOD and Checkpoint and every company. They all have the same understanding that today, anybody, anywhere, anytime is a potential target for a nation state grade attack. Not a simple attack. Simple attacks are much lesser today. All attacks, ransomware was for us for the last, 30 years, but it was very not sophisticated. In the last 2 years, ransomware became extremely sophisticated. So this is where we are. The entire world became more sophisticated, and the cyber attackers are accelerating.
So the reasons for the attack. So there's espionage. It's our next question, right? So people are trying to gather information. There's money. People want to steal money. What other reasons that we're not familiar with?
Terror and politics. Politics meaning create mess in the other side. So you look at Russia, they have attacked. Russia
influence public opinion. Yeah.
Yeah, the Russia influence. This is official now. The election in the US, they attacked the German parliament. They attacked the French parliament. Iranians attacked the British parliament. Let alone in the Middle East, they attacked everybody. So create mess. It's another way of weapon.
Now, another question here, as a follow-up, what you just said is a wonderful segue to this question. Would you estimate that today's most hackers are backed by governments or they're working independently?
So I wouldn't say most, because there are many, many kids that are doing small things. So in number-wise, I don't think it's most, but the most sophisticated groups are heavily backed by governments.
That's pretty disturbing.
We know personally groups in Iran. We know personally many groups in Russia, in China. North Korea, it's hard to know because everything is government there. But in those three countries, we know personally the names and the people and the pictures and everything that are heavily, heavily, heavily backed by the governments.
And we have one last question before we let you go. And it's about specifically your company, HolistiCyber. From your experience, are your clients coming to you after they were already attacked, or they're coming to you as part of their attempt to prevent an attack, as part of their preparation?
So, by the way, every mid-sized company in the Western world is being attacked constantly. Thousands of attempts. The question is, are they coming us after a huge successful attack? So in most cases, no. I mean, we approach them, we talk to them, and they became client, and we protect them. In some cases, yes. Recently, mainly in the last 2 years, we got many new clients because they were attacked and crying for help. And we were there and helped them. So, but most clients are coming through the traditional sales channels and word of mouth. A lot of word of mouth. Today, maybe almost 50% of our clients are word of mouth. The people heard about us and calling us. Some people moved from organization to organization and calling us to the new organization. This is the way we are acquiring clients.
Thank you so much. This concludes our discussion. I just wanted to thank you for really this comprehensive overview. I think our viewers learned a great deal today from you. And I remember the first thing I felt after I met you is the same thing I feel now, and that is that you're the kind of commander I'd like my child to serve under. You are honest, decent, you're a straight shooter. And the fact that post-military, you decided to be on the defensive side, I think says a lot about you as a human being. But the fact that you want to use yourself as a force for good, and that's admirable. So thank you for allowing us to share some of your wisdom with our audience. Until the next time, greetings from Jerusalem. And back to you, Dina.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
all.
Thank you, Ambassador Aharoni, and thank you, Brigadier General Ran Shahor. I feel much at ease that we have such unique individuals as yourself in this space of nation-state grade cybersecurity. And I was not one of your soldiers, but I definitely salute you. For our audience, please join us for our next program on May 29th in conversation with Ido Aharoni, conversing with Avi Chasson, Chief Executive Officer of Startup Nation Central. For now, thank you all for joining us and enjoy the rest of your day.